I'm Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. Today, no book reviews, no music videos, some writing advice. Today I drove down from Salt Lake City down to southern Utah to visit the site of the MEADOWS Massacre. It's in the middle of southern Utah in the desert here. As you can see, I'm the only one here at this historic site of one of the most brutal Old West massacres in the history of the United States. In fact, probably the most brutal. If you don't know what it is about, let me talk to you about it while we walk over here to the memorial. So, in 1857, there was a wagon train full of pioneers coming from the east, moving out to California, and they were passing through this area in southern Utah. Just so you get an idea of where we're at, we're about 50 miles west of Cedar City, Utah, about 30 miles north of St. George, in the middle of the desert, Old West Desert. Back in the day, this was Indian country, Paiute Indian country. The Fancher Party was the wagon train, had about 140 men, women, and children in this wagon train, pushing their belongings and cattle through the Utah desert towards California. And they got to this spot, and the Mormons in Cedar City, Utah. Now, whether this is true or not, this is up for debate, this part of the story. The Mormons in Cedar City, Utah, got wind that some of the people in the Fancher wagon train were bragging about murdering the Mormon prophet Joseph Smith several years ago at Carthage Jail in Missouri. And it was pissing those Mormons off that lived in Cedar City, and they had already vowed to avenge the blood of their prophet if they had ever ran into anybody that was involved in his murder. And so here comes this Fancher Party with supposedly people bragging that they had taken part in that murder. And so, when the Fancher Party got out here to Mountain Meadows, about 50 miles west of Cedar City, the Mormon militia from Cedar City, dressed as Paiute Indians, they dressed that way to fool the Fancher Party. Here's the memorial. Here's a memorial. They dressed that way to fool the Fancher Party. They dressed as Paiutes, and they laid siege on September 7th of 1857. They laid siege to the Fancher Party, and they harassed them September 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, killing 10 of the Fancher Party. You know, the Fancher Party circled their wagons. They thought they were defending themselves against Paiute Indians. The Indians, the supposed Indians, they were actually Mormons posing as Indians, were hiding up in these surrounding hills, shooting down upon the party, killing 10 of them. On September 11th of 1857, the Mormons took off their Indian disguises and came down into the camp with flags of truce. They said, "Hey, we noticed that the Indians are harassing you guys. Why don't we escort you? Let us escort you out of this place so you are not killed by the Indians." And the Fancher Party was like, "Hey, thanks for the help, And then the Mormon militia said, "But you have to give us your weapons." So the Fancher Party reluctantly gave them their weapons. And as soon as they gave up their weapons, the Mormon militia turned on the Fancher Party and murdered everyone in it. You never give up your weapons, folks. Let that be a lesson to you right there. If somebody ever asks you to leave your sword at the gate, just turn around and go to a different gate, right? So yeah, the September 11th, 1857, 1857. The Mormon militia murdered the entire Fancher party, men, women, and children, except for, this is even worse, any child under 8 years old they left alive. And what they did with those children is they took them back to Cedar City and they adopted them into their own homes and raised them as their own kids. So other than September 11th of 2001, September 11th of 1857 was the most brutal religious-based terrorist attack on American soil. And you know, there's many books written about it. The reason I'm doing this video is because I want to do an Old West. I started writing an Old West novel. I want to do a big epic Lonesome Dove type novel, right? And the first few chapters, well, the prologue to that novel I've written, and it takes place. It is about the Mountain Meadows Massacre. It starts at the Mountain Meadows Massacre, and then the novel moves on to you know, the Mountain Meadows Massacre was in 1857. Then it jumps in time to about the late 1800s with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, who also lived around this area. Like Circleville, Utah, was where Butch Cassidy was born and raised, and that's 80 miles up the road. But they were outlaws in this part of the country, and so my epic western, and that's the writing advice part of this video, is, hey, if you're gonna write something that's of historical significance, come and visit the places. Not only that, but read everything you can about it. I have read a handful of books about the Mountain Meadows Massacre now. American Massacre is great. That's one of the good ones. Red River is good. The Mormon Murders has some good information on it. That's more about the Mark Hoffman forgery trial, but it's still got some great information on the Mountain Meadows. Also, John Krakauer's Under the Banner of Heaven has several chapters on this, and that's a fantastic book. And then I've also read some Mormon versions of the story. So I try to get all sides. I don't try to, you know, I don't want to believe everything the Mormon version says, but I don't also want to believe everything that the non-Mormon versions say, because I think both of those versions have an agenda. You know, this memorial was put here by Mountain Meadows Massacre gravesite, built by and maintained by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints out of respect for those who died and were buried here and in the surrounding area following the massacre of 1857. So that's the memorial that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints put here. We'll walk around this memorial here. Up here we've got the American flag. It is a state park sort of a place, and you know, walking around this area, I'm noticing that man, the landscape is harsh. It is brutal. I cannot imagine the Fancher party or any pioneer party of the day, even the Mormon pioneers when they came across the plains, how they managed to sorry if the wind is making this hard to hear, but you know, hardships, you know, my hardship is this camera probably picking up the wind noise. The Fancher party's hardship was just pushing wagons through this brutal landscape. I don't know how you did it. I mean, I can get on an airplane in Frankfurt, Germany, and fly to Salt Lake City, Utah in 16 hours. You know, 150 years ago, that trip would have taken me an entire year. And I imagine I would have sprained my ankle a couple times. And if I'd have been traveling with my family, I likely would have lost several of my family members to accident and death and disease. So we've got it nice, folks. I mean, this is a brutal, brutal desert landscape out here. And I cannot imagine pushing a wagon full of my possessions through here and having my family here and then worrying about Indian attacks or even Mormon militia attacks, which proved to be the deadlier of the two. But it's just fascinating. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I think that, you know, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 times a year as I travel around the world, and I do travel a lot, I will post a few of these videos on my channel because most of my travels are for research, just like this one here to the Mountain Meadows Massacre site for my epic Western that I may or may not ever get to write, but at least it's cool to be here and see the site of where this took place. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed this different type of video.